My name is Sabrina Cole, and I'm 24. If you'd walked into my parents' basement 3 years ago, you'd have called the place a lost cause. Concrete slab that sweated in spring, exposed pipes rattling like cutlery in a drawer, a grim rectangle with no walls, no insulation, and a smell I used to joke was vintage mildew. I didn't move into a basement. I moved into a dare. I'd worked construction summers through college. I knew how plywood feels when it drinks humidity, how drywall dust clings to eyelashes. When my parents offered me the space, cheap rent, fix it up, save your money, I said yes and meant it with my whole chest. We shook hands over a verbal agreement. I'd invest the labor and the materials, pay $400 a month, and stay as long as I needed to get on my feet. No one wrote it down. At 21, trust looked a lot like family. I poured $22,000 of my own money into that cave. Nights and weekends after my day job, I framed walls, hung insulation, ran new electrical, coaxed a bathroom into existence. I solved the spring flooding with a trench drain and a sump pump, sealed the floor, cut a separate entrance, laid plank flooring that clicked together like little promises. 8 months later, what had been a storage tomb was a 700-square-foot apartment with a kitchenette, bedroom, living space, and a bathroom that didn't sigh when you turned on the light. My parents beamed and gave tours to their friends. My mother would push open the door and sing, "Look what Sabrina did," like the space itself was proud of me. For 2 years, everything stayed gentle. I paid on time, kept it immaculate, and watched my savings grow in a spreadsheet that made me feel like a person with a future. Then my mother texted me, "Family talk upstairs at 6. Love you, the loaded kind." At the dining table, the air smelled like chicken and news. My father sat at the head like it mattered. Across from me, my older sister Kendra bounced her 1-year-old on her knee, while her husband Dylan pretended to be absorbed in a sippy cup lid. Kendra's eyes kept skating just past mine, like I was a lamp in the corner. "We've been thinking," my father began, which is never how you introduce a miracle. Kendra tucked a hair behind her ear, the move she uses when she's about to ask for something we both know she'll get. "We're expecting again," she said softly, almost apologetic. "We're really outgrowing our house." Our house is a tidy 3-bedroom 15 minutes away. I waited for the point, like you wait for a bridge to meet you on a foggy night. My mother spoke like she was offering me cake instead of an eviction. "We told Kendra and Dylan they can have the basement apartment. It's perfect for the little ones. You'll need to move out in 30 days, sweetheart." The room tilted, just a fraction, just enough to feel the blood move wrong. "What?" My voice sat too high, like it had climbed a ladder and didn't know how to get down. I put my money into that place. My labor. You said—" "We improved our property," my father said, crisp as a receipt, "which we appreciate, but it was temporary. The original understanding was clearly temporary." "Temporary meant until I saved enough for my own place," I said, and felt my hands go still on the table. "Another year, that's what we discussed." Kendra's baby squealed, like a tiny applause line. She still wouldn't meet my eyes. Dylan finally looked at me and shrugged in that unhelpful, easy way, like we were discussing what to order. "It's just kids," he said. "Space." My mother's smile frayed. "Sabrina, you're single. Your sister has a family." I almost laughed. "I have a boyfriend, actually, Grant. But what they meant was, you don't have dependents we recognize as leverage." "Your house is 15 minutes away," I said to Kendra. "Calm the way a lake looks calm until you swim in it. You said the school district was perfect. You said the backyard was, what was the word? Dreamy." Her gaze flickered. "It's far from mom and dad for childcare," she answered, rehearsed. "And with the new baby, we need more room. The basement is convenient." Convenient. I thought of the trench drain I'd dug, kneeling in cold mud with a headlamp and stubbornness. How convenient. Downstairs, my apartment contained exactly one future, mine. I could see my lists on the corkboard. Down payment, 10 more months. I could also see the gap that would open if I started paying market rent anywhere nearby. The math was simple. The down payment would slip a year, maybe 2. The thing I'd built would become the reason I lost the thing I'd been building. 30 days. My father pushed his chair back, decision entered and filed. "We'll help you look for rooms. Plenty of good roommate situations." "I'm not a freshman," I said. "I'm a person who kept her word." The conversation deteriorated from there in the polite, vicious way families perfect. Tone soft, subtext serrated. The verdict didn't change. When I stood to leave, Kendra finally looked at me. For a second, there was something like apology there, and then it shuddered into relief. She had won something. I wondered what she thought she'd paid for it. Outside, I called Grant from the driveway. The sky was the flat gray of a closed door. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Bree," he said. "I'm off in 20. Everything okay?" I told him the story without crying, which felt like an achievement and a failure. He got very quiet in the way men do when they're balancing fury with the need to be useful. "I'm coming over," he said. "Then tomorrow we call a lawyer." "I don't want a war," I said, even as the word lawyer steadied something in my gut. "You want fairness," he said. "That's different." In my apartment, the apartment I had coaxed into dignity, I traced the rim of the mug I'd bought on the day I installed the kitchen faucet. I remembered the way the water first ran clear through pipes I had tightened, the private miracle of that. I pulled a folder from my desk and flipped through 2 years of receipts: the sump pump, the insulation, the vinyl plank flooring, the extra GFI outlets because my father didn't want to worry about code, photos before and after, text messages with my mother. "What color tile? Do you like the matte?" Her answers had hearts in them. A smaller memory opened like a trapdoor. Kendra last Thanksgiving, laughing with Dylan about how smart money makes more money. He'd said it like an Instagram caption, shallow and weirdly proud, and Kendra had added, "Sometimes it's about using what you have." At the time, I'd thought she meant leftovers. Grant knocked and came in with takeout, and that look he gets when he's made up his mind for both of us. We ate on the couch, cartons balanced on the coffee table I'd built from reclaimed wood. He listened to the echoes I hadn't said out loud. "They can ask you to leave," he said finally, "but they don't get to pretend your work and money were imaginary." "I don't have a lease," I said. "It was all family." "Then we treat family like business, because they decided to," he replied. "We get counsel. We do this right." When he left, I walked the space one more time, like I was taking attendance. Bedroom wall, square, baseboards, clean seams. Bathroom, no hiss. The soft click of the light switch was the exact sound of a promise kept. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the pump in the corner hum, reliable as a heartbeat. 30 days. The number tried to be a guillotine in my head. I wouldn't let it. On my corkboard beneath the down payment timeline, I pinned a new sticky note with 2 words: "Call lawyer." And beneath that, smaller: "Don't apologize for wanting fairness." Upstairs, a chair scraped. Someone laughed. The house held us all the way it always had, without judgment, without a side to take. It was the people inside drawing lines with their mouths. When I turned off the lamp, the apartment held its shape in the dark, and so did I. Tomorrow I would start the list over, this time in a different column entirely. Grant found the lawyer. He'd texted me a name that morning: Lydia Cho. Tenant rights, no nonsense, first consult free. By noon, I was in her office, gripping a folder full of receipts, photos, and the story that had turned my home into someone else's nursery. Lydia was maybe 40, tidy bob haircut, the kind of calm that belongs to people who read fine print for fun. She flipped through my documents like she already knew the ending, but wanted to see how the plot was written. When she looked up, she said, "You've done your homework." "I built the homework," I said before I could stop myself. A corner of her mouth lifted. "That helps." She explained it plain. "Bad news first. Without a written lease, you're a month-to-month tenant. In this state, that means they can ask you to leave with 30 days' notice." It felt like someone had tugged the floor 2 inches lower. I said nothing. "But," she continued, tapping the receipts, "you made substantial improvements with their consent and for long-term occupancy. That gives us leverage. What they're doing could qualify as unjust enrichment or promissory estoppel. Legalese for they can't profit off your investment while pulling the rug out." "Can we stop the eviction?" "Maybe not entirely," she said, "but we can make it expensive for them to ignore fairness. I'll send a letter. 2 options. Either they honor the original understanding, 1 more year at reduced rent, or reimburse you for the value of improvements, minus depreciation. I'd estimate about $17,500, so." I blinked. "That's real money." "That's justice with a calculator," she replied, already typing. When the letter went out 2 days later, the piece shattered. My parents showed up unannounced. My mother's eyes already shiny, my father's jaw set like concrete. "You're suing us?" he barked the second I opened the door. "After everything we've done for you?" I'm not suing anyone, I said quietly. Lydia sent a letter. That's what adults do when words stop working. You could have come to us, my mother cried. Emma, sorry, Kendra, is stressed. You're tearing this family apart. I asked to talk before. You made the decision without me. My father paced. This is what greed looks like. We gave you a home. I built a home, I corrected, and you took it. That's when my mother said the line that would echo for weeks. Family doesn't keep score. I looked at the folder on the counter, the receipts, the proof, and thought apparently someone should have. They left furious. I waited until the door closed before I slid down the cabinet and sat on the floor. I'd stood up for myself, and it felt like falling. That night, a group text buzzed to life. My parents, Kendra, Dylan. Kendra's message. I can't believe you're being so selfish, Bree. Your niece and the baby need space. You're really putting money over family? Then Dylan. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Grow up. You don't even have kids. Grant saw my phone light up. He read the messages, jaw tightening. Don't answer, he said. Let your lawyer handle it. I want to defend myself. I know, but that's what they want. To turn this into guilt, not facts. I silenced the chat. 10 minutes later, the cousins started chiming in. Then my aunt, then my grandmother, whose name lighting up my screen used to mean comfort. Sweetheart, when I was your age, family always came first. Please think of the children. The words sliced deeper than the threats. By the next morning, my mother had called my boss. Apparently, she wanted to explain the difficult family situation so my work would understand if Sabrina's distracted. My boss, thankfully professional, called me in. Everything all right at home? She asked. I smiled too wide. Family renovation dispute, I said. I'm fine. She gave me that look people give when they know you're lying, but respect your effort. When I told Grant that night, he muttered, that crosses a line. It's a family tradition, I said. We specialize in crossing lines while pretending they're hugs. The following week, Lydia called. We got a response. I braced myself. How bad? Not awful. They hired a lawyer. They acknowledge you have a claim, but only offer $12,000. It's low, but it means they're taking you seriously. I ran the math in my head. How $12,000 could cover a security deposit, a few months of rent, the hole this had blown through my savings plan. It's tempting, I admitted, but not fair, she said. We'll counter with 15. Meanwhile, the social fallout metastasized. Kendra hosted a family meeting that I refused to attend. My cousin Maya, the only one still talking to me without judgment, filled me in later over FaceTime. Bree, it was ugly. Your dad said you're extorting them. Kendra was crying about the stress and the baby. Aunt Linda suggested everyone chip in to pay you off so she could move in faster. Pay me off? I laughed, though it came out like a gasp. Yeah, like you're a contractor, not a daughter. Maybe I am, I said. At least contractors get paid for their work. Maya hesitated. Grandma's taking it hard. She keeps saying you've lost your way. I've found my backbone, I said. They just don't like where it's standing. One night, Grant came over with dinner in quiet. He didn't try to fix it. He just handed me a fork and said, eat first, rage later. Afterward, he took my hand. You realize what's happening, right? What? They're not angry about money. They're angry you stopped playing the role. The helpful one. The obedient one, he corrected. You're changing the script. The phrase landed somewhere deep, right under my ribs. I stared at the corkboard, now stripped of house goals, replaced with legal notes and new apartment listings. Then I guess Act 2 is going to hurt, I said. He squeezed my hand. Act 2 is where the main character learns what she's made of. 3 days later, Lydia called again. The counter's in. We'll see how they respond. Don't engage directly. I agreed. But that night, my phone pinged again, this time from an unknown number. Heard you're cashing out on your family. Classy. I didn't recognize it until I saw the profile icon. Lindsay, Grant's ex-girlfriend. She still ran in some of Kendra's extended friend circles. Grant read the message, then sighed. She's fishing. For what? For drama. Don't give it to her. I deleted it. But the truth was, every side channel, family, friends, even ghosts of Grant's past, seemed to be echoing the same message. How dare you value yourself? The next morning, I texted Lydia. We stand firm at 15,000. No more texts. All through you. Her reply came in one word. Perfect. Then she added, proud of you, by the way. Most people back down when guilt's the weapon. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, I'm tired of building things that only other people live in. That weekend, I started packing, not to move out yet, but to remind myself it would end. Each box felt symbolic, proof that I could dismantle one version of home and build another. I labeled one box documents, one kitchen, one dignity. Grant smiled when he saw that label. "That one stays unopened," he said. I smiled back, "Promise." Outside, the first hints of autumn brushed the air, crisp and new. I didn't know it yet, but the next time I'd stand in that basement, it wouldn't feel like defeat. It would feel like closure. The waiting, though, the silence between offers, was its own kind of battle. I just didn't realize the real twist was coming, and it would make everything I thought I knew about this family look like the warm-up act. The settlement came faster than I expected, and felt worse than I imagined. Lydia called on a Wednesday morning. Her tone was neutral, which always meant mixed news. "They've agreed to pay $14,500, she said. "It's not full reimbursement, but it's a clean number and fair considering depreciation. No court, no dragging this out. I'd recommend you take it." I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. "So, it's over?" "Legally? Almost. Emotionally? Probably not for a while," she said gently. We met that afternoon to sign the agreement. The check sat on her desk, cold, impersonal, like closure wearing a suit. When I left her office, the Seattle sky was the same color as the envelope in my hand, flat, heavy gray. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. That night I told Grant. He was proud but cautious. "Take the win," he said, wrapping an arm around me. "You got something back. Most people never do." "I didn't want money," I said. "I wanted them to admit it was wrong." He nodded. "They never will, so take their money and build something they can't touch." It sounded noble. It also sounded lonely. A week later, I learned what they'd really done. I was at Willow's Coffee, my usual Saturday haunt, the kind of place where the barista knows your name and overcharges you for emotional comfort. I was halfway through a lukewarm latte when someone tapped my shoulder. It was Jake, a friend of Dylan's from their construction company softball team. I knew him vaguely from family barbecues. Nice enough, if a little loud. "Hey, Bree, how's the move going?" he asked. "Still packing. You heard about that?" He chuckled. "Yeah, Dylan mentioned it. Said you weren't thrilled about them taking the basement. But hey, with what they're getting for the rental, I'd move too." My spoon froze mid-stir. "Rental?" He blinked. "Their house. The one on Maple? They listed it last month. You didn't know?" I didn't answer. I just smiled like my face was made of glass. "Oh, right. Of course. Yeah." Jake, realizing too late that he'd stepped on a mine, mumbled something about refills and vanished toward the counter. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone. I typed their address into Zillow, then into Craigslist, then into a rental site called Havenstay. There it was. Charming 3-bedroom family home in a great school district, newly renovated, available next month. $2,850 per month. Photos gleamed. The same backyard swing set where I'd pushed my niece last summer. I scrolled through the listing twice, then again. The captions mocked me. Bright nursery space. Ideal for families. Spacious living area. Spacious enough, apparently, to evict me for profit. I forwarded the link to Lydia. Her reply came 10 minutes later. "You've already settled, so this doesn't change the legal outcome. But yes, it proves they lied about their motive. I'm sorry." I stared at her message until the letters blurred. I wasn't sure what hurt more, that my family deceived me, or that I'd signed away any leverage before uncovering it. When Grant got home, I told him everything. He paced in silence, then said, "You could still confront them." "And say what? That I know the truth? They'll just spin it. They're already renting it out. They've won." He looked at me. "Maybe winning isn't what you think it is." The next morning, I woke to a text from Kendra. "We'll be moving in next week. Just confirming you'll be out by Friday. Mom said you're mostly packed?" No greeting, no apology, just logistics. I typed 3 words. "Yes, I will." Then deleted them. Typed them again. Hit send. 2 days later, I walked through the apartment one last time. The scent of pine cleaner and sawdust lingered faintly. Ghosts of renovation days. I'd scrubbed the baseboards, patched tiny nail holes, even replaced a cracked outlet plate because some part of me couldn't leave it imperfect. Old habits die tidy. When my father arrived for the key, he stood at the doorway, arms crossed. "Glad we can put this behind us," he said. "Sure," I answered. "You know, Bree, money can't buy peace." Neither can guilt, I said, handing him the key. He flinched just slightly, then pocketed it. That night, I sat on my mattress, the only furniture left, and scrolled through apartment listings. Everything within city limits was either microscopic or unaffordable. The suburbs looked more hopeful, but further from my office. Grant squeezed my shoulder. We'll find something better, maybe even a little house with sunlight. I smiled weakly. And no basements. He grinned. No basements. He didn't press me to cry, or rage, or forgive. He just stayed until I fell asleep sitting up, the way you do when your heart is still holding its breath. 3 days later, Maya sent a screenshot, a photo of Kendra and Dylan standing in my old apartment, boxes piled behind them. Kendra's caption read, "New chapter for our growing family. So thankful for blessings." Hundreds of comments. "Beautiful space. You deserve it. So proud of you." I stared at it until Grant gently took the phone away. "Don't," he said. "They want the narrative. Let them keep it." But it wasn't the narrative that broke me. It was the knowing that while they smiled for their perfect photo, the caption might as well have said, "Bought with my sister's trust." That weekend, I loaded the last of my boxes into Grant's car. We drove in silence for most of the hour to my new place, a small one-bedroom near Capitol Hill, older building, flaky paint, slanted floors, but mine. When I turned the key, it smelled of dust and freedom. The first thing I unpacked wasn't clothes or dishes. It was the corkboard. I pinned a new note, "Start over, on higher ground." For the first time in months, the air felt like mine to breathe. I thought that was the end of it. But life has a cruel sense of pacing, and what came next would show me that leaving that basement wasn't just an ending. It was the start of a reckoning no one saw coming. 6 weeks later, I stood outside my new apartment, a second-floor walk-up with peeling paint and a front door that swelled every time it rained, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Silence that didn't accuse me. No crying voicemails, no guilt texts, no one upstairs deciding my life. Just the steady hum of the city and the quiet fact that every creak, every chipped tile, every imperfect thing in this space belonged to me. Grant helped me move in that day. We carried boxes up the narrow stairs until sunset. When he dropped the last one, he leaned against the doorway, sweaty and smiling. "Looks like freedom," he said. "Freedom with water stains," I joked. "Best kind." We ordered pizza, sat on the floor, and ate from the box. For the first time in weeks, I laughed. Real laughter, the kind that comes from remembering you still have a future. But the world and my family weren't done testing that piece. A week after I'd unpacked, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Could you come over to fix the leak in the basement bathroom? Kendra says it's dripping again." I stared at the message for a full minute before typing back, "Hire a plumber. It's not my home anymore." She didn't reply. Later that night, she called twice. I didn't answer either time. Grant looked up from the couch. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, though my hands were trembling. "It's weird, saying no to someone who's always assumed yes." He nodded. "That's the muscle you're building now." Meanwhile, rumors trickled in through Maya. Apparently, Kendra and Dylan's grand plan wasn't going so smoothly. Their tenants, a lovely family, according to the listing, had moved out after 2 months, citing undisclosed plumbing issues. The house sat empty for a while, mortgage ticking away. Kendra complained to anyone who would listen that she was bleeding money while trying to juggle 2 kids in a cramped basement. Maya's voice on the phone carried equal parts pity and satisfaction. "Poetic justice, huh?" "Maybe," I said, "but it doesn't fix anything." Still, I'd be lying if I said the image didn't bring me a quiet, guilty satisfaction. Kendra trying to fit her curated family life into the space she once called temporary housing. 2 months later, life surprised me again, this time in the best way. A job offer landed in my inbox. The company I'd interviewed with months earlier had reopened a position. Same title, higher pay. The only catch, it was in Portland, 3 hours south. I stared at the email, heart racing. Moving again so soon felt reckless. But the pay was better, the advancement real, and most of all, it was mine to choose. Grant looked at the email and smiled. "Take it." "What about us?" "I can commute on weekends. We'll make it work. This is your next step." That night, I called Lydia, not as a client, but as a friend, and told her the news. "You're moving?" she asked, pleasantly surprised. "I am." "Then take it from a lawyer. This is the cleanest escape clause you'll ever get." The next few weeks were chaos. Leasing termination of paperwork, packing tape, job onboarding forms. But for once, every decision was driven by freedom, not reaction. The night before I left, I drove past my parents' house one last time. The curtains were open just enough to see shadows moving inside. The basement lights were on. I could picture Kendra pacing with a baby on her hip, Dylan arguing about bills, my parents pretending it was all fine. I didn't stop. Instead, I parked for a moment down the street and whispered to the windshield, "You took what I built, but you'll never understand what it cost." Then I drove away. Portland greeted me with rain that smelled cleaner somehow. My new job started on a Monday. By Friday, my boss had already praised my problem-solving instincts. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd learned those instincts by surviving my family. Grant visited the first weekend. We explored the city, drank coffee on the riverfront, and walked through neighborhoods that didn't carry my family's ghosts. On Sunday night, he turned to me as we packed leftovers into the fridge. "You realize," he said softly, "you didn't lose a home. You learned how to build one." I smiled, tracing the edge of the fridge magnet shaped like a tiny house. "Yeah," I said. "And this time, I'm the only name on the agreement." 3 months later, I got promoted. 6 months later, I was pre-approved for a mortgage. And when I signed that paper, I didn't cry. I didn't think about the basement, or the betrayal, or the family group chat that had gone quiet except for the occasional birthday text. I just felt still, whole. Kendra still complained to Maya about space issues. Their tenants had trashed their house, apparently. The basement plumbing kept leaking. I didn't say a word, because some stories don't need revenge, just distance and time. And maybe a little poetic symmetry. 6 months. That's all it took for everything to look unrecognizable. Not broken, not lost, just different. I wake up now to sunlight, not to the sound of my parents' footsteps overhead. My townhouse isn't big, but it's mine. Every wall, every key, every cup of coffee brewed without guilt. The mortgage paperwork sits in a folder labeled independent, a word that still feels deliciously rebellious. When I moved to Portland, I promised myself I'd stop checking Kendra's social media, but curiosity is a hard habit to quit. A few weeks ago, Maya sent me screenshots anyway. Kendra's post showed her in the basement, holding her new baby on one hip. The caption read, "So grateful for family and fresh starts. Even if space is tight, love fills every corner." The irony was enough to choke on. Same space, same square footage. Suddenly, too small for a single woman like me, yet perfectly cozy for a family of 4. If you ignored the peeling paint and the leak they still couldn't fix. According to Maya, their rental house had become a financial disaster. The first tenants trashed it, the second stopped paying halfway through the lease, and the property sat vacant for months. Kendra called it bad luck. I called it karma wearing work boots. My relationship with my parents has cooled to polite distance. We talk occasionally. Birthdays, holidays, nothing real. When they call, the conversation drifts through weather updates and work small talk. My mother always ends with, "You know we love you, right?" And I always answer, "I know." What I don't say is that love without respect is just a performance, and I've stopped buying tickets. Grant and I are still together. Long distance isn't easy, but it's quiet. The good kind of quiet. He visits twice a month, and every time he walks through the door with his overnight bag, he says the same thing. "Feels lighter here." Maybe that's because there's no history pressed into the walls. No guilt ghosts hiding behind the drywall. Just air, space, and me. One night over dinner, Grant asked, "Do you ever regret sending that letter?" I thought about it. About the money, the fights, the months of being painted as selfish. Then I remembered the moment I signed the mortgage papers and the silence that followed. Clean, sharp, earned. "No," I said finally. "If I hadn't, they would have kept teaching me that family means giving until you're empty." He nodded. "Then maybe the basement wasn't something they took. Maybe it was something that freed you." I smiled. "You sound like Lydia." "She sounds smart," he said, grinning. I got an email from Lydia last week. She congratulated me on the house and added, "You'd be amazed how many cases like yours cross my desk. You just handled yours with more grace than most." I stared at her message for a long time. Maybe grace isn't the absence of anger. Maybe it's refusing to let anger be the only story. My grandmother surprised me next. She called one Sunday evening, her voice small, almost uncertain. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she said. "Your mother told me everything. I think I judged you too quickly." I held my breath. You were right to stand up for yourself, she continued. Family should never mean erasing your own needs. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. That was all she said before hanging up, but it was enough. A 6-month wound doesn't close overnight, but her words stitched a piece of it. Spring came early that year. I planted succulents in the windowsill and adopted a rescue dog, a golden mix named Max, all clumsy paws and unearned confidence. He follows me from room to room, tail wagging like he's announcing, "You did it, you did it." Sometimes when I water the plants or walk Max around the block, I think about that basement. I picture the walls I built, the wiring I ran, the quiet pride I felt when the first light flicked on. That apartment was my trial run at building something from scratch. Now I'm doing it again. But this time, the foundation isn't just concrete, it's boundaries. Maya visited last month. We sat on my porch with wine and watched Max chase his tail. She said, "It's funny. When you stood up for yourself, everyone thought you were tearing the family apart. But now a bunch of us are realizing how much we've been bending just to keep the peace." I looked at her. Maybe peace that requires silence isn't peace. She nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe it's just quiet control. The last box I unpacked was labeled sentimental. Inside were old photos, a few cards, and the corkboard that had followed me through every version of home. The sticky note that once said, "Call lawyer," had faded, but I kept it anyway, a reminder of the moment I stopped asking permission to protect myself. Now there's a new note pinned beside it. Build your life like you built that basement, with patience, precision, and pride. Just don't forget who it's for this time. I know people will still call me selfish. They'll say I should have given up the space for family. Maybe they're right in their world. But in mine, I finally learned that family without fairness isn't love. It's leverage. And if I had to lose them to gain myself, then it wasn't a loss. It was construction. Because I built that basement with my own hands. And now I'm building something even stronger. A life that's entirely mine.